What's up, guys? Welcome to my video on catching and netting and handling carp. This is part of my series on intro to carp fishing. So this is geared towards anyone that's looking to get into carp angling. If you're somebody who's already experienced in carp angling, this stuff may be old news to you. My ask, if you're new to carp fishing and you're getting into the sport, is that you try and utilize these techniques to the best of your ability. There are a lot of different strategies and way to do this, and I try and go over some of those in this video, but obviously it's not exhaustive. There are different approaches, and I also understand there's different equipment of various costs, and sometimes it can be cost prohibitive for people that are trying to get into the sport and do it right. And I try to address that in a few different ways in this video as well. I try to be honest and upfront about some of the stuff I use that costs a little more and some of the stuff that's a little more budget friendly, and talk about some options. You know, because I get it. A lot of people want to do this sport and they can't necessarily spend $100 on a piece of equipment. And I understand that, no judgment. You know, but I do try to talk about ways that, that you can get into the sport and do it right. You know, if you're practicing catch and release carp angling. So I hope you enjoy this video. I hope that it's helpful. Hopefully it's useful. And thanks for watching. So up front, some of the equipment you'll need includes a unhooking mat or cradle, and then a container for holding water. This is a basic unhooking mat. You can find these for under $10 from most carp supply stores. I have also seen people that make really basic unhooking mats that seem to work pretty decent, just based on a yoga mat. Get a yoga mat and just cut it down to size, and that's about the most budget-friendly way to go about this. This is my carp cradle, and obviously these are a little bit more expensive than an unhooking mat. But there are a lot of advantages to this, and quite frankly, this is something I wish I would have invested in a lot earlier, and I'll talk about why later in this video. Here, this is just a bucket that I often use for mixing pack bait that's been cleaned out and used for water. You can see in the earlier picture I have a container that's collapsible. Really, any container that can be cleaned out usefully and can hold lake or river or whatever water that you're fishing in is useful for this. And then you'll need a proper net. This is a carp angling net that is finer material. This is an NGT. You can see I've got the one with the floats on it. They come in various makes and models, but these are the best for catching carp in. If you can't get one of these, then getting a net with smaller holes and rubber coated will work as well. What you want to avoid is the larger nets that have the larger holes, because the fish's fins will get caught in those and it will destroy the fins and make it very difficult for the fish to survive when you release it. Once you're set up and ready to fish, you want to pour some water into the either hooking mat or the cradle, whichever thing you're using to unhook the fish in. You want to use water from the body of water you're fishing in, so lake, river water, whichever. Especially when it's really hot out, those mats can get very hot, and clearly there's going to be a discrepancy between the heat, the temperature that the fish is living in naturally, and the temperature on that mat. So this will make a big difference. It'll also calm the fish down a lot, so when you're unhooking it, it'll be a lot calmer and a lot easier to handle. You can see in this shot that I have already unhooked this fish in the water before I ever transferred it over to the carp cradle in the net. I just did this with my hand. If you've hooked a fish correctly in the lip, a lot of times it's pretty easy to unhook it with just your fingers. You can also use pliers, which I often use to unhook the fish. If the fish is 20 pounds or lighter, you can transfer it to the carp mat or the carp cradle pretty easily with very low risk. One of the nice things about the official carp nets, like the NGT net I was showing you, is that they do have the ability to be broken down and the net can be separated from the pole. So once you start catching fish that are north of 20 pounds, it's a lot easier to break the net down in the water before trying to transport the fish up. And this is safer for fish transport. It will also decrease the risk that you're going to break your net. So once you safely have the fish on your mat, then you want to pour a little bit more water on the fish, and then also you want to moisten your hands by dipping your hands in the water that you've got in your bucket there as well. Pouring water on the fish is obviously good for it, but it also helps take a really nice picture. You know that when you pour that water in there, you can rinse off any debris that is collected on the fish, so you get a really nice picture. So you can see in this clip we have a pretty active fish, which is not uncommon, but it's the reason that you want to stay squatted down and low to your mat so that as the fish flops around, it doesn't flop away on the ground or injure itself. But the goal is to slide your hands underneath the fish's body so that you can support it from below, and your guides are that anal fin and that pectoral fin. We do eventually get it here. So you slide them underneath the body and keep the fish tilted towards you. With that dorsal fin towards you, if the fish starts to flop or fall again, you can tilt it back towards your body and keep it safe, or quickly lower it back down to your mat. And then right on cue, and I swear to God, I'm not trying to sell carp cradles here, but this shows the advantage. You see that my bite alarms go off and my alarm and my rod takes off, so I have to quickly put the carp down, and it's nice to be able to put that cover back on and keep that fish secure while I grab that other rod. Then I'm able to come back here and take the top back off, and then come back to the fish again. And obviously I've been away for a second, so re-wetting my hands and pouring some more water on the fish again. But you can tell this is also taking some time, and you really don't want to keep the fish out of the water any longer than you have to. I will say common carp tend to handle this a little bit better, but once you've started catching grass carp and buffalo, you'll see it's much harder to revive them if they've been out of the water for a while. So getting them back into the water is high priority, even with these other strategies that help keep the fish safe. When holding a carp, you absolutely have to hold it below and support its body weight. Again, using those fins as your guides, but not holding the fins because you don't want to damage the fins. Under no circumstances should a carp be held by its mouth. The structure of its mouth is pretty delicate, and attempting to hold its body weight by its mouth or using lip grippers can damage the structures in its mouth that it needs to eat and survive. You also really do not want to hold a carp by its gills or a buffalo. If you look underneath their gills, you can see that the counterflow from the water is how they exchange gases to survive, and it's very easy to damage these structures if you were to get your hand or anything else up underneath the gill. So this strategy for holding carp is really essential. For getting your best photo with carp, I recommend setting up your tripod and your camera and everything ahead of time and taking a few practice pictures. That way, when it's time to take a picture, you've already got everything set up and in frame the way you want it, and it minimizes that amount of time that you've got the fish out of the water, and it makes sure that you get the best picture that you can. I'm including this video here because it shows another strategy. If you don't have a carp cradle, you can see I have an unhooking mat that he's in, and then the fish is actually in a weigh sling. And so this is another option if something were to happen and you had to step away real quick. As long as you got a lot of water poured on the fish and it stays nice and wet, you can step away for a minute and the fish isn't going to flop off onto the rocks or injure itself. You'll hear these referred to as both retention slings and weigh slings, but this is the best way to weigh a carp. Another way you can do it is in the net that you have. You can attach the scale to the net. Obviously, you don't want to attach the scale to the fish, And another strategy to keep fish safe is just minimize taking it out of the water by keeping either the net down in the water or the retention sling. Or you can see here that I've just set the cradle down in the water. So every time I set the fish down, it's submerged in the water again. And as long as you're standing right there, the risk of it flopping out and swimming away is pretty low. And in my opinion, these water shots are some of my favorite photographs. Now the last step is just a safe release. You transport the fish back to the water the same way you brought it up. You can take it down in a weigh sling or in a net. What you want to avoid doing is standing up with the fish, for the risk of dropping it. When you put it back in the net or the weigh sling to transport it to the water, similar to when you brought it up or when you're weighing it, you just want to make sure that its fins are pinned against its body properly and you don't have an upright fin that's going to get caught up in the net or the sling that's going to damage that fin. And then some fish are going to be ready to go the second they hit that water. Other fish, you're going to get to the water and you might know that they're a little somnolent and not quite ready to go and need some revival, in which case you just hold it in the net or the weigh sling or your hand and gently hold it and allow it some time to revive before it's ready to go, and then the fish will let you know when it's ready to take off. All right, y'all, I hope that video was useful. Like I said, this is part of my series on intro to carp fishing videos. You can check out those other videos here on my page. I'll have links up for how to set up a rig and how to tie a hair rig and how I set up my end tackle and bait and other tactics. I'm trying some new things out this year, and I've changed up a few things from last year. So I'll be updating some of those videos this year as time goes on and as I've got time to make those videos. So once again, thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and I hope this is useful. I appreciate your feedback. Drop a comment in the section below, and if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do.